Hello and welcome. You're watching NDTV 24/7. I'm Rishika Barwa. As cases around the world are rising again, there is overwhelming evidence now to suggest from the UK and the United States and even other developing countries that vaccines are indeed working, even against the Delta strain of COVID. Now, coronavirus deaths are largely being reported in those unvaccinated, and with only just over 6% of India's population double vaccinated, does this leave us more exposed, more vulnerable to mortalities when a third wave hits us? To answer some of these questions, Dr. Randeep Guleria, the head of AIIMS, joins us on the broadcast. Thanks so much, Dr. Guleria, for being with us. A global third wave is here. Several countries across the world are seeing a spike in COVID cases again. What's the estimate as far as the third wave hitting India? Do we have any clarity on the timelines?
So we don't have a clarity on the timeline. We will see an increase in the number of cases in the near future. But I think what really depends is how we behave. As you rightly said, the vaccines are working, and therefore more and more people, if they get vaccinated, we will have a lesser third wave. And if people are able to have COVID appropriate behavior, prevent crowds from forming, prevent super spreading events, then the third wave could be delayed and we could have a lesser third wave as compared to the first and second wave. So I think a lot depends on how we behave in the coming few weeks as far as the third wave is concerned.
But you've said in the past that it is inevitable. So it's a question of, it's a question of when and not if.
Correct. So we will have an increase in the number of cases, because even if you go by the Sero survey, there is a significant number of people who are still susceptible, and they have also not been vaccinated. So they are likely to get the infection at some point in time, and that will lead to some increase in the number of cases. And this will happen as unlocking happens and people start mixing and traveling, that the virus will also spread to some extent among people who are not protected, and therefore there may be some degree of rise in the cases. What we need to do is two things. One is, like I said, COVID appropriate behavior. The other is very aggressive surveillance, so that in any area where the cases tend to increase, we do have some sort of a containment strategy or lockdown, so that we don't allow it to go out of hand.
Many experts and epidemiologists have issued red flags over the fact that the R rate in India is rising. It's currently at 0.96, inching closer to 1. But cases continue, to be on a decline, somewhat plateauing. What does this really mean?
So when we talk of R, when we used to talk of R naught, which was the number of people, how one individual being able to infect others. Now what we need to really look at is what we call RE, that is the effective reproduction number. And that means now what is the R in terms of people who are vaccinated and those who have had the infection. And therefore calculating the RE becomes more important. And that is something that we need to do, because remember, as compared to what we had last year, we had a susceptible population which was not vaccinated. Now we have a population which is susceptible but partially vaccinated. And therefore the spread of the virus will vary depending upon the degree of vaccination in a particular area, the degree of COVID appropriate behavior, and the degree of people who have already had the infection based on the Sero survey. The other important thing to remember is that when we look at the Sero survey, it's important to remember that we are a heterogeneous country. The Sero survey is not homogeneous. You could have areas where the density is high and the people have already had the infection, and therefore your seroprevalence may show a high number. There could be other areas where the number of people who have got antibodies is relatively less, and there is still a large susceptible population there.
Right. I will come back to you about the Sero survey and how we are to interpret this fourth Sero survey. But there's been another study that's been conducted about, COVID deaths in India being actually much higher than what we're reporting. It could be 10 times more according to this study. Do we need a national death audit, in order to better be able to understand just how dangerous, the COVID waves have been, in order to better prepare for the future?
So first of all, I don't think the number of deaths would be that high as has been reported, for the simple reason that, in our country now, it's not that you can hide deaths and you can sort of bury someone or burn someone in your backyard. Anyone who dies, whether it's because of COVID or non-COVID, is reported, and it is as far as our death registry is concerned. So what we can do is, we could argue that there may be some deaths deaths which are COVID but were not reported as COVID, and they could have been reported as non-COVID deaths. So there are 2 or 3 things can be done. One, of course, is a simple thing to see what is the number of deaths. The other is you could look at the average number of deaths that were happening in our country in the pre-COVID time. In the say before 2020, what were the number of deaths that were happening annually, and you could compare that with the number of deaths now being reported during COVID time and see what is the difference. That will also give you an idea of what were the average excessive deaths that were happening. This may not be totally correct, because we have had a decrease in number of deaths because of, let's say, road traffic accidents, because the lockdown decreased the number of, let's say, traffic on the road, and that may have to be taken into account. But this can be done. But I don't think that the number is going to be very high. There may be some deaths which were COVID related but got reported as non-COVID because testing was not done in them.
Right. Speaking of deaths, both the UK and the US vaccine rollout we've seen has dramatically reduced the number of deaths, seeing the proportional rise in cases. Is this perhaps living proof that vaccines are working, and indeed, Dr. Guleria, working against the Delta variant as well? There were several questions over whether vaccines will work against new emerging variants.
So as of now, the vaccines are working, and this is what we've seen in the UK also, because the Delta variant is now becoming dominant globally, and still we are seeing that the number of hospitalizations are less. So 2 important things there. One is vaccines are working to prevent serious disease, hospitalization and deaths. And this is classically seen in the UK. They have a huge surge in the number of cases. The infections have gone up, but the deaths have not gone up, and neither have the hospitalizations. So vaccines are protecting you. If you get yourself vaccinated, you will have a less severe illness. You may get the infection, but you will not get the disease. But the other important thing to remember is that what drives mutation? What drives mutation is the number of people who get infected. The more the number of people that get infected, the more the virus replicates, and the higher the chance of mutation happening. Therefore, even if we say that the vaccines are working, it doesn't mean that we should just not have COVID appropriate behavior, and that is why a lot of experts have raised the alarm on what is happening in UK, because they've opened up, the cases have gone up, and there's a worry that you may have a new mutation happening in a place where the vaccines have already been given, the virus is multiplying, and there is some degree of pressure on the virus to mutate because of the immunity which is there due to the vaccination in the population.
Right. But given the fact that we are now seeing overwhelming evidence that vaccines are indeed working, just over 6% of our population is fully vaccinated against COVID. Will a third wave therefore actually be less severe, as many experts are predicting?
The third wave will be less severe, because not only are we looking at vaccination, we are looking at the degree of people who already have antibodies because of having had the infection. We mentioned the sero survey data also. So if you combine the two, then it means that there is a good number of people who have had either the antibodies or have got the vaccination. Although, like I said, this is a heterogeneous population. We cannot say this is across the country, and therefore we need to look at pockets which are still susceptible.
But what about breakthrough infections? Are we worried about that?
So the data that is there regarding breakthrough infection, and there is some study that we've also done, we're still analyzing the data where we've looked at breakthrough infection in our healthcare workers in our hospital, which is around almost 20,000 people. But there is data also from ICMR which suggests that breakthrough infection continues to be low. It is not that high. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the data suggests that it is less than 4%, and therefore large number of people who have been vaccinated are actually protected as far as breakthrough infection is concerned.
But speaking once again of India's vaccinations at the moment being way below the government's own target, do you anticipate that we will be able to vaccinate 60% of our population by year end? How do you look at it?
I think so, because now we are at the phase where the vaccination numbers the doses available will increase, because both Bharat Biotech and Serum Institute have now set up new plants, and the number of doses should increase hopefully by the end of this month or by early next month. My own worry is that we should also tackle vaccine hesitancy. Our capacity per day is much more than the number of people who are coming up for vaccination. So we must develop a strategy that more and more people come to get themselves vaccinated as more and more doses become available. So we will see the vaccine drive picking up in the coming few days, and I'm sure that we should be able to at least vaccinate 60% of our population. Remember, this is a huge target. Currently we vaccinated almost 40 crore people, more than 40 crore who got the first dose. This is more than double the population of UK, and you could combine many countries in Europe, and then you would still have doses to spare as far as vaccination are concerned.
Yes. But our population is just so large, and it's something that we knew when we were preparing for the pandemic and vaccination. But speaking of the Sero survey, which you've been talking about, Dr. Guleria, 2 out of 3 Indians above the age of 6 have antibodies. What does this tell us about herd immunity? Is India inching closer to herd immunity, or is that still very far away for us?
So I'm a little scared about using the term herd immunity for 2 or 3 reasons. One is that herd immunity depends on the fact that you are assuming that the virus will not change. If the virus changes, then you have again a population which is partially susceptible, and the whole concept of herd immunity may not be true. Secondly, like I said, this is a heterogeneous. So you may have areas where you will have people who have got themselves vaccinated, who have had the infection, and there your Sero survey may show a very high positivity. On the other hand, there may be areas where there is vaccine hesitancy, and also there are people who don't have antibodies, and that pocket could be a hotspot where you could develop a huge increase in number of cases. Therefore, although the data is very encouraging that we have a large number of people who are now protected, I don't think that we should sit back and say that now we don't need to be aggressive in terms of COVID appropriate behavior or pushing for more and more vaccination.
Right, and according to the Sero survey, it also says that there are still around 40 crore people who are still at a higher risk of the infection. That's almost 1 in 3 Indians.
Correct. So if you look at it from that point of view, that means we still have a large number of people who don't have antibodies and who are therefore susceptible to get the infection, and therefore also spread the infection or have more serious illness. And therefore it means that we need to still continue to have COVID appropriate behavior, continue to have our surveillance in place, and keep encouraging people to get themselves vaccinated. What is encouraging is that this time the Sero survey also looked at younger age group. They looked at children also, and there was a lot of worry that children may be susceptible in the third wave, that they may get more severe infection because they are protected and they haven't got the vaccine, and therefore they will get more severe illness. The Sero survey suggests that even children have got the infection, they have had the mild infection, and they have relatively good antibodies, and therefore to some extent are protected.
Right. That's a very interesting point that you raised about children, but I just want to ask you very briefly about that graphic that we're putting out on our screens right now, which is a comparison of the 4 Sero surveys that have been conducted. And if you compare what happened in the 3rd Sero survey with what's happened in the 4th, I mean, obviously there's a huge time gap. The 3rd Sero survey was between December and Jan, 21% immunity, and June, July, 67.6% immunity. That's a huge jump.
So that's a huge jump. That means during this second wave, we did have a large number of people who got the infection, didn't know they had COVID, and had become positive. And therefore the difference between the 3rd and the 4th Sero survey is the second wave, which had been huge. And therefore a large number of people had the infection, didn't know they had it, or never tested, but developed antibodies, and that is the difference between the 3rd and the 4th Sero survey.
Right. The Delta variant, we're told, according to new studies, has increased the threshold for herd immunity. Initially, it was believed that around 70% immunity in the population is good enough. There are many experts who now say that it needs to be as high as 90% given the Delta variant. Would you agree?
So like I said, herd immunity would depend as the variants evolve, and that is why the threshold has gone up, because the Delta variant is much more infectious. It spreads more rapidly, and therefore to break the chain of transmission as is required, and that is the basis of herd immunity, that if you have a large number of people who are have antibodies or who are vaccinated, then they will break the chain of transmission, and even if a small number of people are susceptible, they will not be exposed to the virus and therefore be protected. Now if you have a virus which is much more infectious and spreads more rapidly, then your herd immunity cutoff will have to go up, because that means this virus can spread much more rapidly as compared to what was in the original virus, which was the Wuhan one virus, where the rate of spread was much lower.
Right. Can fully vaccinated people develop long COVID?
So, if people who are fully vaccinated get COVID, then they can develop long COVID, but there is now data which is emerging which suggests that the chance of developing long COVID in fully vaccinated people, even if they get the infection, is much lower, and therefore to some extent the vaccine does protect you from getting long COVID if you get COVID infection subsequently. This is just preliminary data which has come out, but we need to have more data before we can say that this is definitely there. But vaccines will give you a milder disease, you will not get severe disease, and therefore that will also protect you from long COVID, because there is data which suggests that long COVID is more in those who have more severe disease, moderate to severe disease, as compared to those who have mild disease.
What about people who had COVID before they got vaccinated? Can the vaccine be effective in say curing long COVID or reducing the impact of long COVID in those people?
So vaccine is not a treatment for long COVID. If that's what you're implying, that is not there. If you had COVID and you've taken the vaccine and after COVID you have long COVID, taking the vaccine will protect you, give you more antibodies, but it is not a treatment for long COVID per se.
Right. The Lancet has published a very interesting study this week, Dr. Guleria, where they've talked about living with 11 to 17-year-olds could increase the risk of infection by 18 to 30%. So, this once again puts the spotlight back on vaccinating our younger population. How do you look at this study, A, and when do you think India can start vaccinating children?
So, I think this is an important issue, that children who are, if you're living with children, although they will get a mild infection and they are protected, they can carry the infection home, and if they are high risk group living with them, that could be the elderly or those with comorbidities, they have an increased risk of getting the infection. And that is one of the reasons why people are worried that if you allow children to mix up or they go to school, then they may get a mild infection, but they may carry the infection home and give it to their grandparents or someone who has a comorbid illness, and that may cause a severe attack in the family. We need more data, but this is something which is there has been shown even with influenza infection, that the children get a mild infection, but it can lead to severe infection as far as the older age group is concerned. Coming to the issue of vaccination, I think it's important both from the point of view of protecting young children and also from the point of view of breaking the chain of transmission, because like we just discussed, children can be part of the chain of transmission. When will we get the vaccine for children? I think the Zydus vaccine already has done the trial in children, and they're waiting for emergency use authorization. The Bharat Biotech trial should be over by August or September, and by that time we should get the approval. And the Pfizer vaccine already has been approved by the FDA. Therefore, hopefully by September we should start vaccinating children, and that will also be a big boost as far as breaking the chain of transmission is concerned.
Well, that's heartening. You're saying as early as September we could begin vaccination for children. When will schools be able to open full capacity? We know some states have already begun opening schools, limited capacity, only a certain number of classes. But when do you think this can formally happen on a larger scale?
So I personally feel that at this point in time, in a graded manner, we should start having physical classes, because I think schools is much more than just online learning. There is a lot of other interaction which children need to have with their peers, with the teachers. It's an issue of social interaction, it's an issue of character building, and all of that is very important as far as children are concerned. And there are many children who in primary class who have never even gone to school, and therefore a lot of education is suffering, especially for the marginalized children who don't have access to internet or to a computer, and they're really suffering and probably have dropped out of school. So we really need to start physical classes in a graded manner, develop strategies, and hopefully by October, November or the end of the year, when children start getting vaccinated, we should be in a position to have schools open totally in a physical manner as we were doing in the past.
Right. Dr. Guleria, you said very interestingly that the Zydus vaccine is the front runner for vaccinating children. We know that there were Covaxin trials as well. But if you look at what's happening globally, it is the Pfizer vaccine that is predominantly being given, to the 12 to 15 age group. Some countries vaccinating, the younger population than that as well. Given the fact that there is no Pfizer vaccine still in India, how do you think that works? Do you think we need to bring the Pfizer vaccine to India, focus on vaccinating kids with it?
So we need to do both things. We need to get our own vaccines because we can't rely on vaccines from outside. We don't know when they'll come, how many doses we'll get. And that is why both the Bharat Biotech and the Zydus vaccine are important, because the studies have been done in children, and therefore if we get them, then the number of doses that we'll have to vaccinate children in our country will be sufficient, and that will really be helpful. Getting the Pfizer vaccine will also be helpful because they already have the approval, and now we have a lot of data from countries across the world that this vaccine is safe in children above the age of 12 years, and therefore that will also be a boost. So I think we need to look at both strategies.
Right.
Getting our own vaccine and also getting it from outside.
So which vaccine do you think children can start getting from September?
So I think children should be able to get both Pfizer and the Bharat Biotech vaccine, and hopefully the Zydus vaccine also. Right. So we will have more than one vaccine hopefully available for children by September.
We know the Moderna vaccine has been approved. We know J&J has a tie-up with Biological E as well. When do you think these vaccines can hit the market?
So this is something that the manufacturers have to look at. When can they really ramp up production, and how many doses will they be able to provide as far as India is concerned. But like I said, that in the next few weeks we will be able to have more vaccines available in our country, and hopefully not only from our own manufacturers but from Moderna and J&J, and that will really increase the vaccine pool that is available in our country, and therefore vaccination will really be picked up to meet the target that we've set by the end of the year.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Dr. Guleria, for joining us. Those are important answers that you've given us on the broadcast today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.